A transparent alias of William Wilson, Sportsman and Scoundrel, by Thomas Ligotti. William Wilson has a namesake who looks exactly like him, walks like him, and is equal in any game of wits. They first meet at Dr. Bransby's School for Boys in England. There, Wilson's namesake is constantly thwarting his designs, challenging his superior status among their peers, and, on the whole, making things difficult for him. Hounded beyond all human endurance, William Wilson, one night, takes leave of the school, aborting his academic career, but at least ridding himself of his obnoxious twin. Later on, however, Wilson's namesake intrudes upon his life at the most inopportune times, to put a damper on his debauched parties at Eton by reminding him that immoderate and late hours are bad for the soul, to expose his cheating at cards at Oxford, and, overall, to meddle in his nefarious affairs in most of the major cities of Europe, including, of all places, Moscow. Eventually, there is a showdown with swords between the two William Wilsons, and William Wilson, the original, wins. Before he dies, the bloody namesake utters the awesome pronouncement that William Wilson has killed only himself, not to mention all hopes of ever becoming a sane and decent individual. Of course, Wilson realizes that his twin was right all along, and soon after this regrettable duel, he sits down to write the tragic story of his life as an apology, and perhaps a warning to others. While he's writing, there's a knock at the door. At first, Wilson doesn't bother to answer it. Right, Wilson, right. But the knocking is so persistent that he finally does. Standing in the doorway, dripping wet from the storm outside, and suddenly illuminated by a flash of lightning, is William Wilson's namesake, back from the dead. "May I come in?" he asks. Wilson steps aside in amazement and allows the gory twin to enter. He has some trouble scrounging up a chair for his guest. The house was rented cheap, but isn't much on furnishings, though at last he turns up a small, unvarnished stool, which the other Wilson checks for splinters before sitting down. "I've found out a few things since the last time we saw each other," Wilson's namesake begins. "You'll recall that I was always admonishing you for changing your ways, and so on and so forth. Well, I now know that my efforts were actually quite pointless. There was nothing I could do, or you could do, or anyone else." "No," protests Wilson. "It was my own will," he insists, "and nothing else which condemned me." "I'm afraid you are wrong. So wrong," continues Wilson's exasperated namesake, shaking his blood-stained head. "It's not just you. It's everyone. You're just a little fish, my friend. You think you were out to get yourself. You think you were perverse. I don't want to play the alarmist, but I've been some places and seen some things, and believe me, there's nothing but perversity. The machinery of this place operates entirely on the principle of friction, my friend. I've lost the hope of heaven, interjects William Wilson. Heaven? Forget heaven, replies the namesake. Heaven will be when the big brainless William Wilson has torn everything up so bad that it'll have to suck the whole mess back in and start over. The point I want to make here is that now that we know what we're up against, maybe we can make our peace and perhaps be of some comfort to each other. This is a really unique opportunity. Maybe, but William Wilson will not hear any more of this insanity. He's already suffered enough at the hands of his twin. Taking up his sword, Wilson attacks the specter and savagely hacks him to bits. "There's my peace with you," he shouts. Then he goes around, feeding the hunks of flesh to the dogs in the neighborhood, all while admiring the simple hunger of the devouring beasts. William Wilson, soon afterward, starves to death, for when he returns home, he finds that the thought of what he's done won't let him stop laughing long enough to take any nourishment, or even a drink of water.